Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the BeQuiet Dark Base 701. Now 700 series is lower than the 800 series, and we've done the we've had a new case in the 800 series, we've had a new case in the 900 series. Now the price of the 800 was lower than the 900, but the price of the 700 is higher than the 800. That confused me from the start, but this case is going to be coming in at around the 229 mark, and that doesn't matter whether you're talking about dollars, euros, or the Great British Pound. They're all 229. Now the 800 series, there were a few different ones, but they're all under £200 there or thereabouts, and they actually went down to around 165, 170 for the base model. So for this one to have a lower number but then coming at a higher price put me on a little bit of a back step straight from the get-go. But what we will do is we will put the pricing to one side and we'll give the case a good look and a fish around, see what the features are, see what it can do, because it has one trick up its sleeve that the 800 could not do, and then we'll decide at the end, once we've obviously tested it and done performance data, but we'll decide at the end whether it could be the case for you, whether maybe you should look at the 800 instead. So for me, I always start at the front and the top, and you can see that we have an illuminated power button in the middle. This button to the left hand side is actually a fan controller. So that is on full speed, which is 1900 RPM for the included fans, which are 140mm Silent Wings 4 fans. Case actually comes with 3 included, but I will talk to you more about that in a minute. When it goes down to that, so it looks like it's off, that is 600 RPM. We'll call that silent mode. Then when you smash it again, you'll see the light comes up a little bit more. This one is, they say 1200 RPM, but in the software that I use to monitor RPMs, which is basically the Asus Motherboard software, it's coming in at around 1050. When we hit it one more time, the light gets a little bit brighter, and as I said, it goes up to full speed. If you were to press and hold the button, it will eventually flash, and that means you can control it with the PWM on your motherboard, so you can use your motherboard software for it. Now the button on this side, as you can see, is already pre-illuminated. Now this is basically a push button switch that we've got quite used to with the BeQuiet products, which will go through many modes and many colours, and you'll eventually get round to where they will go off. There are multicoloured ones. There's, oh, I do like the white when we eventually get to white. There we go. But there are many modes. There is also a fan controller inside, which I will show you more of in a minute. But I'm just coming round the back. In fact, I'm going to flick the power switch off, and we'll go round the back straight away, because what I want to do while we are at the top, and I've got the tripod up nice and high, is show you the roof panel comes off in its entirety, just the mesh across the top. And then you've got this great cavern, these massive open areas at the top, but the tray for the radiators, AIOs, fans is actually removable and is below, and you can pull it out the side, and you can get 3 120mm fans up there, or surprisingly 3 140s as well. So it can take big radiators and big AIOs, or just lots and lots of airflow. Now in the front, it is a simple pull to pull off the front panel completely, and you can see that there are little gold pins down the side, which means the lighting is all built into that front panel. You can see the little PCB down here. Now you can remove the front dust filter, very fine mesh, and this front section as well can be, oh flipping heck, they're thumb screws. I might need to go to mechanics gym to work on my thumb action a bit more. This front panel anyway is removable, so you can pop it out, fit your fans, fit your radiators, whatever you want. Now the thing to remember is the fans fit inside the tray, so that means all the room on the other side of this could be for radiators, should you wish, which we will talk about in a minute. Now it does come with 3 Silent Wings fans, one in the front, one in the back and one in the roof. I've added another 140mm in the front just to be able to show you that there's loads of room in there, but also add an extra fan in for testing, because at the end of the day I don't think many of you will buy the case and then do nothing. A lot of you, I think, will probably end up putting an AIO in the roof, which will mean you have a spare fan and you're likely to put it in the front anyway. So I just thought I would add another fan in. You can find them online for like 20 to 25 pounds, and I just thought it was a good match, because if I'm honest, it was what I would do. I would add at least one more fan into this. If you add a third in, then you do send a lot of airflow down towards the power supply, and unless you've got mechanical hard drives and stuff, you don't really need it. Point your power supply downwards so it can draw air in from the bottom, which there is a dust filter for, which I'll show you in a minute. There you go, it pops all the way out the front. But the reason for that is you don't necessarily need that extra fan in there, and it really does depend on how much airflow you want to be forcing through the case. Again, when we get inside, there's some little bits and bobs that I need to show you with a cover and that sort of thing, but most important thing, dust filter, removable fan tray, radiator tray, whatever you want to call it. 1 fan normally, 2 fans in the front for my review because I've added one, and a very easy removable front panel. All lovely, lovely. Round the back, 140mm fan fitted, 120mm mounts in there if you want it. You can move the fan up and down. You can see that the fan screws here are covered, but they've got the little cutouts for you. Now you do have a vertical mount here on the outside. It does get quite close if you've got a big fat graphics card like a Strix to the side panel window though. So I'm going to suggest, and it is just a suggestion, if your graphics card is dual slot, I would use this mount. If it's triple slot like a Strix or a Supreme or one of the higher end graphics cards, then please do yourself a favour and buy one of the vertical mounts that attaches into the I/O brackets over here, so that it moves your graphics card more inbound, and then that way you're going to have much more breathing room for your graphics card rather than suffocating it on the window. Now this bit here, for water cooling, having it very close to the window can be brilliant depending on the look that you're going for, but for most air-cooled rigs you are going to want something that sits a little bit further over. There are loads of brands out there that sell these add-ons. Cable Mod used to sell them, NZXT, Cooler Master do sell them. The NZXT one, I always chop it up because there's a chunk on the bottom of it, but where this hasn't got a lower fan blowing up at it, it wouldn't cause too much of a problem. But anyway, that is just my suggestion if you want to go vertical mount. Then, removing the rear panel, there is some foam on the back to help with resonance. But the first thing that I want to talk to you about in the back, which requires me to zoom you in, and there we go, is the fan controller. So you have a multi-port fan controller here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in total, plus 2 addressable RGBs here. Now you're thinking to yourself, 8 fans, 2 RGBs. Don't forget you can get fan out cables for the RGBs. That's a really easy thing to do. To be fair though, you can get fan out cables for the PWMs, and I use those a lot anyway. There is a power cable that goes in with a SATA. There is also a cable that goes up with a PWM that you can connect into your motherboard. That one to connect into your motherboard is if you do that 3-second push on the front panel button that I said about. That means that that cable then is how your motherboard reads and controls the fans. There is also an LED strip cable here, but that's the LED strips for the case itself. And round the back, there are lots of these panels. As he zooms back out, he remembers that we're zoomed in. There are lots of these panels to help hide, conceal the cables. You can see up this section here, we've got a large section of the cables. Now, they do have cutouts. As you can see, I'm pushing my finger through to be able to push the cables through, but then you do still have these cable tie points as well, which makes everything quite handy. There's more of them at the top here, lots of cable tie points. You can see down that section there, there's a cable tie point there and a cable tie point there. Now, when I put my 8-pin cable up there, I should have used that and tidied things up. But if you imagine that I've gone the lazy route with this and you could do a better job at home, then you could say that this is a worst case scenario. You can also see that this panel here, you've got the like a concealing panel again, but it does actually clean the lines up when you look from the other side. You have on this side SSD and 3.5-inch hard drive mounts, but also you can put water cooling reservoirs up on this section, and when we get on the other side there are just plastic clips that you can remove. And now that I've pushed it off, am I going to be able to get it back on with pretty much one hand? I don't know. Anyway, we'll deal with that when we get onto the other side. But you can put the cables, poke the cables through this way if you want. You can have your reservoir on the other side. There is also a bracket that goes down here for mounting 3.5-inch hard drives, but you have to buy the rails for it separately. I honestly don't know why they don't bother sending you this, and the whole thing would become an add-on. There is also a mount down here should you want to use it for a 120 or 140 millimeter fan right down here in the floor section as well. Now, as you can see with the power supply up here, this is a normal 180 millimeter length power supply, so there's loads of room for massive power supplies and also hiding massive cables. The one thing I will say about the power supplies, it does go in the back with these thumb screws, and they are captive nuts as well, which makes things nice and clean. You're not going to lose them. So loads of airflow in the bottom, even if you don't want to use the vented panel that I will show you in a sec. Round to the business side of the case. The window has a very light tint. It's nothing too intrusive or overly darkening. These are the panels that I said to you about from the other side. Now, I'm going to need to just try and line up that rubber one there. This one hides in the middle like this. And they're really good for hiding the stuff that you've got on the other side, but you can remove them all if you want. And like I said, you can put a reservoir up here with your pump on it. When you remove this lower panel, we have had some chats recently about actual radiator support. So with a nod to Stuart, who we were sat up chatting to late one night, actual radiator in the front. So effectively, what you can see here is the fan fits in the gap lovely, but radiator does not. So if you can see that there is that little channel just down the front, can you see where the two little holes are? That is a supporting channel for this, which is the plastic clip. Now, the radiator itself will not fit past that channel, but the fans will. So what this means for us is that the radiator size is a bit limited. And as I said, this was all because of Stuart, and I'm not going to take credit for him noticing this, but I mean, I've got a 30mm thick radiator in there, but I'm going to suggest that you are going to be very limited at about 40 mil. I would stay with a 30 mil thick radiator maximum in the front there, and that kind of makes it a little bit limiting, but that is where that lower panel fits. So that would mean that you can have radiators on the outside, you can have fans on the outside and just a radiator here, and you don't have to remove this. Those extra trim panels do mean that all this cavernous amount of difference is only really any good for when you swap in the airflow section, and you can add that fan in the bottom, as I've said, obviously have the radiator going down to the bottom, so there is an airflow path for you, but this big section here isn't really any use for any rads at all, unless you want to break the Dremel out. Now, while we're on this side and talking about radiators, you can see that there's a screw here and a screw over here, and this is where the tray comes out for the top panel. But again, while we're here, there are screws here and here as well, and this is where one of the party tricks for the case comes into its own, because there are screws on the other side as well, and effectively what it means that you can do is invert the case entirely. You do have to pull the side panel bit off here and move everything across, but it is all possible to completely invert the case. The side panel window can go on the back, it all can flip around, and the only real difference that you're going to have is that your motherboard is effectively going to be upside down on this side of the case. But it does give you that option, and this is something that they haven't offered you with the other cases, so it gives you a lovely reason to maybe buy the 701. Now, despite the roof panel being removable, you are going to have to be careful with your motherboard heatsinks. The radiator tray at the top here, the mounts are very offset, so you should be okay for most motherboards with large VRM heatsinks, but the very largest memory modules, like the Corsair Dominator Titanium, for example, may foul a 140mm radiator. You may be lucky with a 120, but it's all going to come down to measurements once you get there and trying to work out what you can get away with and how you're going to set your rig up. Again, in the roof, I would say a 30mm radiator maximum, just because of, if you imagine that you're going to add 30mm down here, it's going to start covering up a lot of the componentry. I think a 60mm thick would be excessive. I personally would say that would look silly. 40mm maybe. It's really going to depend on what you need to get from it at home. I think if I wanted to fit a 40mm rad though, I would probably be looking at making some minor changes down here with a Dremel to allow a bit more to come out, trim some plastic, trim some of the metal to get a bigger radiator in. But if you get a decent performing 30mm radiator, you probably would be okay for the most part, because let's face facts, water cooling is very capable, but at the moment the problem we've got with things like the 14900K is not the cooling but the CPU itself and the IHS. So maybe if you are going to go down this route, maybe look at delidding, liquid metal, that sort of thing, because small changes like that can make a big difference to the performance that you're going to end up getting from your water-cooled setup. So on to performance, very quick, easy one. Because of the way that we test, we fix the CPU fan to 9 volts, we set the graphics card to 60% fans, and then it's just the fan RPMs that change that will alter the cooling and the performance that we get, or the temperatures that we get from the components inside. We tested at 600 RPM, 1000 RPM, and then maximum, which is 1900 RPM case fans. And in reality, the CPU did well in the graphs, or the CPU temperatures did well in the graphs. The graphics card sat around midships. And that's even though we had the secondary fan added. I don't think adding a fan in the bottom is really going to make a massive difference to the graphics card temps on this case, but it is, you know, it's a fair indicator that it's okay. It hasn't shamed itself. I did make a mistake in the previous bit though, and I've left it in on purpose, and I said that this is the first one they've done with the rotatable motherboard tray. The 901 was the one that was the one currently or recently that they have done that. So with the 701 compared to the 801, in reality the motherboard tray is the biggest difference. I know you've got the removable bit at the top, but I'm going to say that it's a very well built case. It performs well. The good thing with those fans at 1000 RPM is they're barely audible. They are cracking fans, and I think at 1000 RPM, around sort of 1000 to 1250 on a fan curve is going to be where most of you are going to want to go. I actually think that most of you should be adding in an AIO in the roof with an extra one of those 140s in the front, whether you use that one and move it or whether you buy one. I think that's a very nice and sweet setup. I also think that if you are going down the air-cooled route, the Dark Rock Elite should be highly on your agenda because it performed very well in our review that we done recently. So if you're interested, go and have a look on the website, or just go and search on YouTube or wherever you want to. So the case itself, with the inverted thing, that's obviously going to appeal to some users at home that want their case on the other side of their desk. But in reality, I think if you don't want it inverted, I seriously think you should be at least going to have a look at the 801, not necessarily instead, but go and give it a good look and add it as a solid point of consideration. You can get it cheaper than this without the RGB fans, and you can get it a lot cheaper than this, well, without the RGB fans. But they do a few models. They do a white version as well. Normally I'd get excited about that, apart from when they asked me what one I wanted, I took a black one, because for me BeQuiet is all about the black. Because if I go BeQuiet, I'd want a white AIO, I'd want a white air cooler, I'd want a white power supply to match. So that's why when I reviewed it, I went with the black stuff, because that's where the ecosystem is with them at the moment. Do I think they need more white stuff? Abso-flipping-lutely. Anyway, so with this, at this price point, if you want it inverted, then bang on. It's going to get you on nice, quiet, BeQuiet cooling at a reasonable price point. If you don't want it inverted, then my personal suggestion is go and give the 801 a good look first, and then make your decision at home. Now you've seen this, if you're familiar with the 801, then I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments underneath. Please like, subscribe and comment, and head over to the website if you fancy a look. It's all mobile friendly now, it's all brand new. If you've got an ad block on, that's up to you, but the adverts that we have on the site don't come from Google or any of those nasty kind of spam publishers. They are all tech companies. They genuinely could be an interest to you. And at the end of the day, the website is the reason why I can keep making videos like this. So if you want to whitelist us, thank you very much. Anyway, that is my thoughts on the new 701. I would like to know your thoughts underneath. I'm not going to go round and round in circles again, because I'm very known for waffling. But thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out. Ding!